behavior is changing in ways that far exceeds technology's capability. Behavior is leading the way. Anyone ever use one of these? Anyone? A few hands are going up. I know the demographic of the room. I could tell by the music playing before I came up here, right? So I know a few of you have used one of these. Did anyone write more than one page, a thesis, a book on one of these typewriters? Anyone? My kids come into my study at home. I love to collect old typewriters. They come into my study, they see these things, and they say, they love to play with them, first of all, right, because it's really kind of a novelty. But then they say, how did you think with one of these, Dad? What do you mean, how did I think? I think up here. I don't think in the typewriter. There's no brain in the typewriter. But wait a minute. Their computers are an extension of how they think. I go back to using this typewriter or my IBM Selectric, and that tactile feel is so gratifying. But then I realized to myself, I've written 8 books. I probably couldn't have written one if I didn't have my laptop, because it is an extension of the way I think. You see, what's changed is not so much the technology. What's changed is the behavior. We think using the technology. It's a change not in just the tool. It's a change in me, the person. And this silly little device here, your iPhone, your iPad, your touch, this isn't a technology. This is the way you think, and it's an extension of yourself, of your brain. What changes is behavior. Innovation is not innovation if it doesn't change behavior ultimately. And that's one of those things that's so difficult for us to understand. And because it's so difficult to understand, we always fall short of predicting the future. I mean, I hate this term futurist. You know, I talk about it, I use it, yeah, because we're accustomed to it. But none of us really can future. Things are changing way too fast. There are some things that are 6 months out, a year out, that, yeah, we can bet on. But the future, the distant future, it'll be so much more perverse than anything we can begin to imagine today. The future is about taking what we already have and repurposing it to create value that'll make it a survivable future for us and for our children. And the Bible of all this stuff is where? There is a Bible for all of this. It's called the Sky Mall Catalog. Okay? So when you fly home, I challenge you to pick one of these up and put it down without finding something absolutely essential to your quality of life. It's absurd. We invent because we can. My favorite, and this is the last one, is the look-see. This is not a Bluetooth microphone and earpiece. This is a video cam that you attach to your ear so you can record your life 24/7 and upload it immediately to YouTube or Facebook. I don't know about you, my life is not this interesting. It really isn't. Kids will never be able to forget. Forgetting is a thing of the past. And you know, we're getting it all wrong, because you think to yourself, hey, wait a minute, you know, this kid's going to go for an interview, they're going to look him up on Facebook or her on Facebook, they're going to see their past, and they're going to see all this bad stuff that they've done, things they've posted. That's a very old way to look at it. Because you know what? That works as long as the boss doesn't have a Facebook account. Once that generation moves to the workforce and they're all on a level playing field and they've all had 20 years of Facebook history, it's just not going to matter. Will it be dysfunctional? To you and me, completely. But you see, that's not a technology issue. It's a behavioral issue. And when we try to predict the future, we're trying to predict technology. That's easy. Will computers be faster? Yeah. Will we need more memory? Yeah. Will we go to the cloud? Yeah. But how will behavior change? That's the part that we never are able to predict well and accurately. The future always has inherent uncertainty. And the one thing, if you ask people, what is the sensation that most bothers you about the present day? It is that sensation of uncertainty. It surrounds us. It's pervasive. It's everywhere. And it's tough to get away from it. But you know what? I don't want you to get away from it. It's not about getting away from it. It's about figuring out how you deal with it. How do you deal with that uncertainty? So let me give you a quick illustration of what I mean. Because uncertainty is one of these things that I'm not sure we quite grasp and understand fully. So let me begin by talking about this thing called the uncertainty principle. And the way it works is very, very simple. As uncertainty goes up, so does opportunity. As uncertainty goes up, so does opportunity. As opportunity increases, the duration of each opportunity decreases. So therefore, as uncertainty increases, the duration of each opportunity decreases, which means you have to react in shorter and shorter intervals of time. Is that the way it feels, right? When you're doing whatever you do at work, right? It's the time pressure to do the right thing in a shorter and shorter interval that most bothers us. But we still don't quite get uncertainty. We're just beginning to understand the implications of it. Prove to you how difficult this notion of uncertainty really is to comprehend. Give me a game, a board game, a sports game, any kind of game that you think epitomizes uncertainty. Yell it out. Give me a game. Yahtzee. Good one, often comes up. Yahtzee, great game. What else? Monopoly. People always say Monopoly. Risk. Stratego. What else? Give me another one. Life. Someone once said marriage to me. I think he meant the game of life, the board game of life, yes. Chess often comes up. Games of chance, games that you might play in a casino often come up. Roulette, games involving cards, dice, these kinds of things. What if I were to tell you that not one of these is a game of uncertainty? Not a single one. There is not a game you could come up with that is truly a game of uncertainty. Because these are games of what? Probability. The casino never loses. It's why they're so well built and so nicely decorated. Right? The casino never loses. These are games of probability. Uncertainty, I'll give you a game of uncertainty. Play chess with a 5-year-old, where the king can leave the board, go to the other room, and not come back until you give up. My rules, I make them up, my game. You want to play with me? It's the way it goes. That's a game of uncertainty. And uncertainty frustrates us because there are no rules. We don't like that. We want rules. But when the rules change in shorter time, it takes a tremendous toll on us emotionally. So when I say survive the future, survive uncertainty, this is what I'm talking about. How do we avoid the blame game? You know, who's at fault? Is it my fault? Is it your fault? Is it the system's fault? It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It is an uncertainty that our kids are going to have to live with. And we're just beginning to understand the depth and the magnitude of that uncertainty. Anything I can do to increase certainty in this day and age has huge value. So I was at the Ritz-Carlton on the west coast of Florida some weeks ago, and someone had parked one of these beautiful Bugattis out front, and I was admiring it, and the valet came over and said, yeah, can you believe that thing costs $1.5 million? I said, $1.5 million for a car? So my brain started working. I thought, what does that equate to on a per-pound basis? Right? So you want to buy a Bugatti? Not that expensive on a per-pound basis, about $300 or so. You know, depending on what you get for accessories, maybe $400 a pound. Not bad, right? I thought, what's an iPhone cost per pound? $1,500, and that's without the apps. You put the apps on it, it's about 40 grand per pound for that iPhone. I thought, wow, you know, the iPhone kind of helps me deal with the uncertainty of my life, has higher value. What else does that? So I thought, pharmaceuticals have high value, help me deal with the uncertainty of life, and I started doing a little bit of math, and I thought, Viagra, $12,000 a pound, and worth every penny of it. Not that I would know, I'm just saying. Someone's really laughing, okay. What else? What else? Well, you know, there are sort of the traditional things that help us hedge uncertainty. You know, if you look at the VIX, the VIX, the volatility index for the stock market, and you hedge that against uncertainty, gold is directly moves opposite the VIX, right? It's a fascinating thing to look at, right? But we value it because it's a hedge against uncertainty. The highest hedge against uncertainty is the stuff that powers our modern lives. If you look at an Intel's latest processor, you're looking at about $25,000 or so per pound. Interesting way to look at this notion of uncertainty and how it factors into our lives and how we value it. We value innovation when it helps us to deal with uncertainty. But you know what? I'm really underplaying this. Because the biggest problem in dealing with uncertainty is success. Your success creates a lens that makes it virtually impossible for you to deal with uncertainty. When we see success, we stick with it all the way to the grave. It's what we're built to do. How do you solve that? Disruption. Disruption is the only way that you can solve this problem. It's why small companies will succeed when large companies simply can't move into a new marketplace. How many of you owned one of these? Right? The first commercially successful pocketable transistor radio. It was called pocketable. You know why it was called pocketable? Because when Akio Morita, the co-founder and CEO of Sony, brought this to the market, it wouldn't fit in a pocket, a regular pocket, so he had double width pockets stitched on the shirts of his salespeople to call it a pocketable transistor radio. There have been 6 billion pocketable transistor radios sold over the course of the last century. 6 billion. I mean, Sony owned that marketplace. They invented nothing. This was pure innovation. All the componentry existed. They licensed the transistor from Westinghouse. I mean, you can go on and on about how this was not an invention. This was just innovation, pure innovation, which Sony was great at, because Sony came back again, and they did this with the iconic device of my generation and maybe yours, the Walkman. How many of these have you owned in your life? Right, a dozen maybe? I mean, Sony owned the music industry. They had it in an iron fist. There was no excuse for them to lose that industry. Akio Morita left, and they lost it. They owned the labels, they owned the artists, they owned the devices and the platforms. Great business model, but they lost it. To who? Because they had the MP3 players. They had everything they needed. The technology was not the issue. They lost it to Apple. They lost it to Apple, which is kind of like saying, buy your next luxury car from Maytag. They have no business building luxury cars. Apple had no business building devices for music. But what did Apple get? Apple got the behavior. It wasn't about the technology. And Apple invented nothing. I mean, in the Innovation Zone, I talk about the fact that even the guy who invented the original portal player and the iPod and pretty much the way that you saw it in its first generation in 2001, Tony Fadell, he wasn't at Apple. He went to every MP3 player manufacturer and he said, I've got an idea. And they all said, you're crazy. The model exists. We don't need a new MP3 player. Apple embraced it. And they changed the behavior of the marketplace. And they invented nothing. But that black screen helped me deal with uncertainty. Apps help me deal with uncertainty. They at least give me the illusion that I have some control over my life and over technology. The last one I'm going to leave you with, and we'll close on this one, and it probably is, in my mind, the most fascinating discussion and the biggest game changer, because I just don't know how this is going to play out. It's just not clear to me yet, is the generational multiplication that we're experiencing in all of our companies. You've got 4 generations working side by side. And you know what's fascinating, talking about behavior? Look at the Nobel Prize, cut the last century in half. First half of the last century, just 4 Nobels awarded to teams, just 4. Second half of the last century, 36 in the physical sciences, Nobels to teams. You know, I will tell you, by 2025, nothing will be invented by individuals. It's all going to be about team-based innovation. This is more than a trend. This is a global cultural phenomenon. It is a psychology that's changing radically across the globe. It's not US-centric. So where do you play in that? What generation are you part of? Don't answer it based on age. It's not about these labels. These aren't generational labels. Right? These are media labels. These are labels that create buckets, you know, that make it easy to talk about the problem. But these aren't the labels I want you to use. What I want you to do is answer a few simple questions to tell you what demographic you fall into. So you're at home. You want to get in touch with your son, your daughter, your wife, your husband. Do you pick up the phone and call them? My daughter saw this. She said, Dad, that is so old school. I would never call you if I was up in my room and wanted to come down to dinner. I would text you, of course. Absolutely. I mean, how ridiculous is this? You know, Mia, time for dinner. Come down, please. It's absurd in ways that we can't even begin to understand. How many of you, first thing you do in the morning, first thing is check your email. Number 1. Come on, show those hands. Let me see it. Yeah, right. I do. My iPad's right there by my bedside. How many of you do it as the second thing? First or second? How many of you do the first and second thing together? Yeah, okay. Talk to kids about dialing. Do they know what a dial is? My son, for the first time in his life, used a rotary phone not too long ago. I had my old AT&T black rotary phone. I refurbished it. It's a beautiful piece of art. It belongs in like the, the Museum of Art. And I have it upstairs in the attic in his playroom. And he said to me, Dad, can I use that phone? I said, yeah, it's hooked up. Go ahead, you can use it. He said, well, how do I use it, Dad? I said, well, you pick up the little receiver there and you stick your finger in the number and you turn it. He says, wow. So he picks up the receiver, he gets the dial tone, he says, okay, it's working, Dad. Sticks his finger in the one, turns it. It's not doing anything. I said, Adam, pull your finger out. He didn't know what it meant to dial. He had no idea. He had never heard that rotary sound. Right? For those that really want to go retro and impress your friends and your kids, there's a great app on the iPhone for this, by the way. I love this one, absolutely. Anyone shop at Land's End? Because these generations, they're all about personalization. They don't want to buy clothes, they want to buy their clothes. So go to landsend.com. Have you built an avatar on landsend.com yet? Anyone? Oh, so you got to do this. Go to landsend.com. You can define your own personal avatar. And you define your hair color, your body size, your shoe size, your inseam, things you would never tell your closest friend, but you'll impart to the internet willingly. Go figure, right? So I came home. I did this a few years ago. The CFO at Land's End told me about this, and I came home. I built my avatar. My wife happened to catch wind of this. So she wanted to do it as well. So I said, go ahead, log on. Here's how you do it and build your avatar. I've got to tell you something. We compared avatars. She fudged the numbers a little bit. Not that she needed to. All right, there's a thing of a gender issue going on here. But she fudged them. You've got to be brutally honest. If you're brutally honest, you'll get the best pair of jeans or chinos you've ever had in your whole life. So let me show you my avatar. I won't show you hers, but I'll show you my avatar. So if you're dirt honest with this... What? Why do I always get that reaction to this? This is exactly what I looked like at 27, I promise. You can build your own avatar. You can share dressing rooms with friends. You can have friends dress you. You create your avatar and create preferences for it. And they've got 2 million body types in the cloud. 2 million body types in the cloud that they will match you to. I never thought there were more like 3 or 4 body types in the world. 2 million body types. And you'll get a pair of chinos. They cost a few bucks more. 70% of the people that go this far and build their avatar will buy the clothes for it. Personalization, connecting the experience. It's all about personalization. The future is not going to exist without this because there's too much uncertainty, complexity for me to deal with it all. Way too much for me to deal with it all as a mere mortal. And personalization is key to how this will be done. But it won't be done as a solo flight. These kids won't do it alone. They're not doing it alone. My son doesn't play with Legos the way I used to play with Legos. He socializes Legos. Remember Legos? Did you guys play with them? And then, big pile of Legos. There were no kits back when I was a kid. Use your imagination. Build your own toy. Well, it's gone beyond kits. My son goes to Lego.com, and he ends up using something that looks like a CAD system, for all I can tell. And this is the way he experiences play. And what's neat about it is once he's built his Lego device, yeah, he can package it and have it shipped to the house, but he can socialize it. And his friends can build on top of it. And for him, that's the pleasure of the experience, is giving up the IP, sharing the IP, seeing what comes back when others add to it. He thinks nothing of that. He's not giving anything up. He's gaining by doing that. He's not giving up by doing that. It's not the way that we think. And does it bug me that he spends 8 hours a day, doing this? Yeah. I said the stupidest thing, do not ever repeat what you're about to hear. I said the stupidest thing to my son a few weeks ago. I said, Adam, damn it, get off the computer and go watch some TV. I'm struggling with this. I don't know about you. I'm just not getting it. I'm just not getting it. Last thing I want to leave you with. Don't ever buy into this notion that it's about predicting technology. It's not. It's about changing behavior. Remember this clip from the Titanic? They see the iceberg from the crow's nest. Right away, they dial it in. You know what's amazing about the Titanic is they did everything right. They did everything right. But it was a behavior for an older generation of ship. But they did it all right for an older generation of ship. And they sealed the fate of the Titanic in one crucial instant. There was one moment after which there was no turning back, after which the fate of the Titanic was sealed. They're closing the dampers so that they can shut the engines down and put them into full astern. The chief engineer gives the order. engage and reverse the engines, right then physics took over. The Titanic had 3 screws. It wouldn't turn. She couldn't turn. There was no maneuverability when you put it into full astern. You had to oscillate the screws. You had to deal with uncertainty in a smaller interval of time. They couldn't do any of that. But you know what? Forget what I just said. Don't worry about any of that. Remember one thing. Look at the eyes of the first officer. Why isn't she turning? Ever see that look in the eyes of leadership? That look of fear, doubt, uncertainty, overwhelmed by complexity. You ever see that look? You got it? Get the hell out of there. Okay? It is not where you want to be. This is not the way the future is built. The future is about behavior. It's about letting go of the arrogance of the lens that we've embraced and grown up with, that we've built over so many decades, and allowing disruption to enter our lives. That's the way you stay young. Who said this? Charles Duell, Commissioner of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, circa 1899. Supreme arrogance, which carries forth to this day. You're building organizations. Can I give you one last piece of advice? Build organizations that you'd want your own children to work for, that deserve them, their brilliance. If you're doing that, then you're building the right future. Thank you. Thank you very much. No, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Tom.